Hey there, folks. How's your reading tonight? Yes, it is night. I've got my curtain closed, not because it's bright outside, but because it's very dark. These things happen, as I'm told. You know, sometimes it's day, sometimes it's night, and then it goes back to day again. I don't know. Rabbiting on about nothing. So I'll pick up my book. So this book, last year I went to Sydney, as you will probably know, because you've probably seen my stupidly long video that I made of all the books I bought at the Book Fair Australia. And I think there's 2 books I included in that purchase, but that weren't actually bought at the fair itself. I did buy them in Sydney. I went to Sydney last year and for the book fair, and I did buy these in Sydney, but not at the book fair itself. We were about a 5-minute walk from the Parramatta shopping centre, just like most shopping centres in America. I think you call them malls. I don't know what you call them in England or any other country. I know what we call them here. Big monstrosities. But they are good for finding lots of shops all in one spot. And I found a QBD Books there. And I went in, and I was in my happy place. I spent a weekend in my happy place in books. And this time, as I have been doing of late, I wander around the shop. Sometimes I take photos of something that just excites me. And then when I've gone and looked at the entire shop, whether I've found anything I want or not, I then go to the front counter and I say, can you make me a recommendation, please? And I try to only buy one book, especially last year in Sydney, because I bought so many other books at Book Fair. I tried to only buy one book. We went to Castlemaine a couple of years back, and I bought 3 there, and that was really good. I still haven't read one of them, but I've read the other 2. They were excellent. So I've had some very good recommendations from booksellers. So I said to her, can you recommend me a book, please? And these are the parameters. I would like no romance. I can't stand romance. I'd like either local or Indigenous. And she said, oh, this is a really good book. She's not local. She's actually from New Zealand, but she did spend 20 years living in Melbourne. So I'll forgive her. And especially as you've got to be really strong, of sound mind and body to live in New Zealand. It is such a beautiful place. Every corner you go around, it's more beautiful than the corner you went around before. You've got to be strong to live there. Don't know why my New Zealand friends laugh when I say that. So I looked at this and I thought, yep, that sounds good. And then she said to me, well, this one, show you properly, this one, it actually comes free with the book. And it says it on the back, a promotional copy exclusive to QBD, not for resale. So I really hope the author, Mary Rose Cuskelly, the author of The Cane, I hope she got financial recompense from that book, which I didn't buy. I looked at the receipt, and it's actually, because the receipt is in the front of this book, where the lady Lani, I've got a name here, where Lani put it for me, and it says, I won't show you up front because it's very poorly printed. So $24.99 for this and $0 for this. But I've actually read both of them, and I'm only going to do one book tonight because I think one book per video is enough. So this is an incredibly black book. It is so hard to read if you're, and I'm going to give you some spoilers just because, so that you understand why I'm saying if you've been in that position, if you know someone in that who has been in that position, if you are one of the grieving families because your child has been in this position and not been found, you might not want to read this book. So when I say in that position, I mean a child was kidnapped. There's actually many kidnaps throughout this book. we only see one of them specifically because that is the main character, Ruth Ann Baker. And we see, this is her story. So we go back in time at odd times and we see when she was kidnapped and what it was like to be kept in this room and held against her will. And we get to understand how it happened and why it happened. And one of the stories behind this is that stranger danger, teaching your child about stranger danger, can be problematic, because how does a child know that someone is a stranger? I mean, what if they live in your neighbourhood and you've seen them many times before? Are they a stranger? What does a child know? So anyway, I think you've probably got an idea that this is a fairly hard book to read. But I struggled to put it down. I seriously struggled. It is nicely written. We see several different places. Ruth Ann Baker is, at the beginning of this book, is living in New York, and we're shown how her life has been affected by her being kidnapped as a 7-year-old and then being rescued. We see how hard it is for her to live. She's 24 by this stage. And then we see another kidnapping, and that changes her mindset. She's all of a sudden got to do something. Why? That's a psychological thing. I don't know. That's it. When you get an Amber Alert, you feel the need to do something. That's all I can say. Not that I've ever had an Amber Alert on my phone. We live too far into Melbourne to ever be part of a bushfire. Having said that, I've been watching the LA fires of late, and I've been thinking, if it's there, then it might come here one day. Who knows? I mean, LA is huge. I've been there. Melbourne is huge. I don't think it's as big as LA. Yeah, so when you get an Amber Alert, you seriously would like to do something about it, and so she does. And through her eyes, we see her story and her journey, and we see that New York, and we see how hard it is to live there, and then she comes to New Zealand, a little place called Marama Valley. I don't know if it's a real place. I have not bothered to check. And we see the absolute beauty that is there. I mentioned New Zealand and its beauty before. Then she spends a night in Melbourne, and we see a bit of Melbourne, not much. Then she goes off to, she changes her mind about going back to New York and heads off to Oslo. And one of the things about this is how she changes her mind just so fast. It's like that. All of a sudden she's got to do this, she's got to do that, she's got to move here. So there's, the thinking is interesting. And from Oslo, it's back to New York, where we find out what really happened. And I don't think I've given you all that many spoilers, actually. We don't see a lot of Oslo. We don't actually see a lot of Melbourne. But because I live in Melbourne, this is Melbourne, Australia, because I live here, I know the place, the places where she was walking and the coffees and stuff. Not that I can tell the difference between good coffee or bad coffee, but some of us just do not have that skill. So, yes, I love this book. If you're good at, sorry, not if you're good at, many people are good at reading. But some people who are good at reading cannot read stuff as black as this, because it is really hard to read and actually see all the stories behind the girls, behind the kidnappings, behind the findings. It's hard. And having said that, of course, I did enjoy the writing. Things I did enjoy about it, and that's my bookmark with my notes, which are very fuzzy because it's very tiny. So I can now look back at, first one says page 100, responsibility. So I can look back at page 100 and I can, yes. So what I talked about in my blog, my written blog, as opposed to my vlog, many people who have survived a situation have survivor's guilt because they feel terribly guilty that they are the ones who survived, where the people who didn't survive. I'm sure there's a better way of saying that. And so I think the sentence, the paragraph that is behind this entire book is, there is a responsibility in being the one who didn't die. So that's a quote on page 100. If you get this book, you can check that up for me and tell me if I'm right or wrong. So, so that's the survivor's guilt. And that's why she goes on this search, because there's this girl called Coco who's been reported missing, and Ruth Ann is trying to justify her actions in doing all this searching by saying that she is responsible because she didn't die. Anyway, that's a challenge. I'm not saying she's right, I'm not saying she's wrong. There's really no point. It is what it is. Okay, now the next one. Childhood amnesia. Why did I put childhood amnesia here? I can't see it again quickly. No, can't see it. Roderick Allen. Page 144, Roderick Allen. Okay, I didn't bring a book with me to show you, but there is a New Zealand author called Ngaio Marsh, and I'm sure I'm mangling the pronunciation, so I'll spell it for you. N for Nelly, G-A-I-O, Marsh, M for Mary, A-R-S-H. Brilliant author. Writes fantastic detective fiction. She's New Zealand. She's from New Zealand. She writes a character called Roderick Allen. And sometimes Roderick Allen goes from working in England, goes out to New Zealand to do some work for the police there. So that was nice to get that nod to Ngaio Marsh, because she's really a good author. I very much recommend her stuff. She's gentle, but she's good. And all throughout this, I have not made a note of this, but all throughout this, okay, so Ruth Ann Baker's boss, Owen something, Owen Lewis, Owen Tucker, Owen. He's got a bar in New York, and it's called something like Sweeney Todd's. Have I got it on the back? No, I don't have it on the back. Something about Sweeney Todd's bar or something. I can't find it quickly. And he's got a thing about playing Stephen Sondheim records over the PA system so that people can hear it. And he also, because Ruth Ann Baker has just recently failed course in police work, not being a police, but being someone who looks at criminals and serial criminals to try and find the common threads that bring them through to catch the criminal earlier. So because that's what she did, he calls her. He really calls her Ruth Ann. He normally calls her things like Nancy Drew or other female detectives from fiction. So it's wonderful to look at that and go, oh, I know that book, I know those books, I know that author. So, 188, Epidemic. Just moving on, because you don't want to watch me read the book, as I very well could do. It is a good enough book to reread again, even though I've only just finished it a few days ago. Actually, more than a few days ago, because I finished The Cane as well in the middle. I was looking at the word... Right, this is the bit about Melbourne. Okay. She's looking at the papers in Melbourne, and she's seeing all the deaths of these women who have had violence perpetrated on them. I can normally talk better than this. All the women who have been killed by their male partners, and it looks like it's an epidemic because there's so many. It's like she's put a figure in here somewhere on this page, or is it the previous one? At least one Australian woman a week is murdered by her intimate partner. Last year, the figures were pretty horrifying, and I have a friend who actually keeps, I don't know if she's still keeping track, but she did for many years. She kept track of the numbers of women who died at the hands of their partner, their male partner, and the number of children who were caught up in that and also killed. It must be really, really hard to do that on a regular basis, just because it would be soul destroying to see every week another lady. It's dreadful, and that's what was noticed here, and it feels like an epidemic, and it does. So anyway, you have been warned. It is hard. It does not have easy themes. But there are some lightheartednesses in there if you want to see, oh, Nancy Drew, I read her as a child, or Roderick Allen, oh, he's a great detective, written by a great author. He's actually, the word I would use for Roderick Allen, and I should actually pull out one of her books and do a piece to camera for you. The word I would use for him is empathetic. And I've been talking for so long, my screens have gone off. Excellent. So anyway, that was interesting. I could just see the room of light and then dark again. It would help if I turned my screen off before I started speaking to you. But anyway, enough. Subscribe down below or don't, as you choose, and I'll see you on another video. Bye.